I don't have the heart. I don't have what it takes to get through it, but that's why you're here on our show. Everybody, please go download all the latest podcasts. I will be listening to them today after the show, but I wanted fresh stats in my mind. What do you got?
Hey, don't tell me you don't have the heart. I heard you during the break. Just twisting the knife. You think that I need to have it made worse for me when I just watched my team lose the Super Bowl for the second time in 7 years? I mean, and I got to sit here and listen to Torrey Smith say the craziest things I've ever heard in my life. We're getting crazy with this Kyle Shanahan stuff. We're missing the forest through the trees, Kay.
Tell me.
At its most basic level, what is the last thing you would want if you're the 49ers? And the thing you would want the most if you were the Chiefs? It would be Patrick Mahomes with the ball in his hands at the end of the game where a touchdown wins the game. Not only did that actually happen, the 49ers handed it to the Chiefs. They gave it to them by taking the ball first in overtime. Why would you ever do that? And it wasn't because the defense was tired, because Kyle was asked about that after the game, and he specifically said no. It was a terrible decision by Kyle Shanahan. And he sits there and says, well, we wanted the ball third in case of sudden death. Is he forgetting that the Chiefs could just go for two if they get a touchdown? If you're Andy Reid, aren't you going to say, let's put the ball in the hands of the best player on the planet 2 yards away from the end zone with a chance to win the Super Bowl? He's not kicking off to Kyle Shanahan again.
But
so I think
stats, they were tired. The defense needed a nap. Stats.
Great. So the defense was tired. So then why are you kicking a field goal? Because you're assuming you're not going to stop Mahomes anyway, right? So then why are you not going for it on fourth down, Kyle Shanahan? Why are you not at least running the ball on 3rd and 4 and then seeing where you are? Maybe you get it. Maybe you gain 3 yards. So then it only becomes 4th and 1. He butchered the end of that game. He screwed up the timeouts at the end of the first half. His game management stinks. He needs help. He's a great play caller. He is a great play caller. Kyle Shanahan is the reason that the 49ers have been where they have been in the past 4 or 5 years, but he's also the reason they don't have a Lombardi trophy right now.
It is, and we'll get into it, and it's something that you and I were concerned with all since I've known you. It's just, can Shanahan sort of figure out the sports psychology of it? It's really the 2-point conversion factor is the biggest thing here. I think. And I think that you're nailing all of that. There were never going to be 3 possessions here. The weirdness of the players admitting that they didn't know the rule. Like, it's messy.
Yes, that is not a good look for Shanahan, certainly. But Mecole Hardman caught the game-winning touchdown, and he didn't know the rule. He didn't know he caught the game-winning touchdown until Mahomes told him in the end zone. So, it's not like every Chiefs player was buttoned up on the rules too, but you're right. It's a bad look for Shanahan. The whole Super Bowl was a bad look for Shanahan. I mean, he made critical decisions in the game that I think cost the 49ers. And the frustrating part of it is early in the fourth quarter on fourth down, Kyle did go for it. The 49ers converted, and they got the go-ahead touchdown to Juwan Jennings. So he made that decision to go for it on fourth down, yet in overtime, he clammed up. I don't understand the difference in those two. You still have Patrick Mahomes on the other side. So why would you change your thinking there? It didn't make sense.
Well, because I think sometimes people make decisions based in fear. And I think that being 0-3 in that kind of a world sort of takes over. How do we help him? You're saying he needs help with the decision making. How do we get over the struggles in the biggest game?
Well, first he has to admit that there's actually a problem, that he needs help. And if you look at his comments after the game, he was totally fine with everything. He said he had no second guesses because he did what he planned to do. And I think that's really where Kyle gets into trouble. And I don't know if his brain is scrambled from the end of the Super Bowl with the Falcons, but he thinks that he's taking emotion out of it by deciding these things ahead of time and then sticking to that plan. He thinks that's the best decision. But what that does is ignore all the information that you gain during the game itself, right? He doesn't know when he makes this plan that Dre Greenlaw is going to pop his Achilles, that Deebo Samuel is going to get hurt, that George Kittle is going to get hurt, that John Feliciano is going to get hurt. He doesn't know how Steve Spagnuolo is going to actually play his defense because the game hasn't started yet. He has all that information once the game starts, but I think he thinks if he deviates from that plan, that he is somehow letting emotion dictate his decisions, and I don't think that's the correct mindset.
Was there a moment in the fourth quarter, were you with me when I was watching that fourth down call? that was so ballsy, and I was like, this man's got it. He's evolved. Were you with me? Because then he went right back to the, not. But there was that moment where I was like, F yeah.
Oh, I was there with you, and he had told the CBS crew that you don't win a Super Bowl, you have to take a Super Bowl. So I remembered that comment, and I saw that he was going for it on 4th down, and I was like, okay, maybe he finally gets it. Maybe the light bulb has gone on, and then he turned the switch off later.
Okay, I'm gonna have Hamilton come in here because Hamilton doesn't want to come on, but Hamilton, he keeps pelting me with things on the old text machine. Hammy, ask what you want to ask about George Kittle, because where was George Kittle? Go ahead, Ham.
So that was one of the things that was confusing to me, Stats, and we haven't really talked about much is, we saw Kittle go to the locker room in overtime. He comes back, he's on the sideline, he's telling them he's ready to go and get back in the game, and they throw Willis out there instead. He immediately gets called for holding, and I think if that doesn't happen, the Niners score a touchdown on that overtime drive. Have you heard any explanation on that, or any sense of why that happened and Kittle wasn't in the game there?
No, I haven't heard a single thing about it, and it's extremely frustrating because you're right. Elijah Mitchell runs for the 1st down, and then there's the holding penalty, and it's literally on the guy who's only in the game because George Kittle is not in the game. It's just, there's a collection of so many little things in this game when you look back on. That's why, like, Torrey Smith's talking about the missed extra point. The missed extra point, that is like so far down the list of why the reasons the 49ers lost this game. They scored 0 points on 2 Chiefs turnovers. They get that interception to start the second half. They don't even gain a single positive yard. They actually went backwards. They started the drive at the Chiefs' 44-yard line. They couldn't get any points on that drive. The missed extra point is so far down the list of the reasons why the 49ers are not champions today.
What about the decision or the letting the run get away from them? Like just the play calling, right? Like especially I think in the second half, right? They sort of went longer stretches than the first half of just abandoning the run.
Yeah, the first 6 plays of the second half were all passes. Kyle Shanahan specifically denied getting away from the run game, but I think what hurt him was they would have an incompletion on 1st down, and then it would be 2nd down, and sometimes there would be a penalty or something that would force Kyle. Like, he thinks that 2nd and long is not a running down. So he would pass on 2nd down, and then they might gain a couple yards, or maybe it's incomplete, and now you're in 3rd and long, and you have to pass. And I feel like he didn't, like, why can't you run it on 2nd and 15? What is so terrible about that? Maybe you gain 5 or 6 yards, and then the 3rd down doesn't become quite so daunting. The average down and distance the 49ers had to go on 3rd was 9 yards. It was actually over 9 yards on 3rd down. Again, Steve Spagnuolo, one of the best big game defensive coordinators of all time, you're making your life so much harder. And Kyle can deny it all he wants, but the facts are the facts. They needed to run it more on those first 3 possessions of the second half, and they didn't do it.
There was so much man coverage in this game, which would make sense. They've got the best, they've got Spags, always aggressive. Like, he's the bizarro world. Kyle Shanahan, he stays aggressive. He's just that's like his baseline is like, I'm going to come after you. And they were sticky all night long. And I would anticipate that. So I don't understand how it didn't work out, because people are saying it exposed the receivers, and this offense. But maybe that's just something that only the Chiefs can do and only Spags can do. And that's just the weakness.
Well, the Chiefs did it. The Browns did it earlier in the year as well. The Ravens did it on Christmas Day. Tight man coverage works against everybody if you can do it, right? I mean, obviously that's the thing to do. But Brock Purdy said after the game they played more man coverage than we thought. And it's like, well, wait a minute. The Chiefs played the 6th most man coverage in the NFL this year. That really caught you off guard? I think maybe what Brock meant was that they came out in zone early and the Niners were picking it apart. Right. So then the Chiefs adjusted, and that could be what he meant. But, like, you got to be prepared for that. If you're Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, maybe you adjust by having Brock run more or something, but you can't just throw your hands up and be like, well, I guess they got us.
I feel like you and I are making like a blame pie for the Niners, and there's like a list. You're like, this could be, this could be a podcast for you, like the list of reasons for most important to not. How big of a slice of the blame plot pie goes to the defense with what the Chiefs did on those final 4 drives?
They get some of the blame, because I felt like, especially on the last 2 drives, it was a lot of soft man coverage. It was, I felt like they were making life too easy for Patrick Mahomes. They were giving them 5, 6, 7 yards at a time for some of it, and then they eventually tightened up. But ultimately, the 49ers allowed 1 touchdown to Patrick Mahomes in regulation. 1. And it came on a one-play drive after a turnover. So yes, the defense, there are things that you don't like there, but ultimately I think the blame lies at the foot of the offense. You got to score more than 22 points, especially when the Chiefs only scored 3 points in the first half. You have to do better than that. You have Kyle Shanahan. You have all those names that we love to list on offense. So why can't you score more? Like, I don't care that it's against Steve Spagnuolo. To be the best, you got to beat the best. And Kyle Shanahan hasn't done that.
Yeah, and Christian was their leading receiver when you have that list of names that we love to see. Maybe, I mean, they couldn't get open. They were defeated. It was crazy. Brock Purdy, you said he's only 24. I saw that on Twitter. We're not going to write his legacy right now. Patrick's not that much older. He's written quite a legacy for himself with 3 Super Bowls. What do we make? I mean, they've got this window. He's on a very modest contract. Let's effing go. Let's get Ayuk back here and let's go.
Well, I don't know if I would say let's
no,
get.
this was your rah-rah. I was setting you up.
Look, Brock, Brock was okay in the game. He wasn't amazing, but if you're saying that Brock wasn't good enough, you're saying he needed to make more like Patrick Mahomes type plays. And that's a really hard standard to have to live up to if you're Brock Purdy. He's 24 years old. He was the 3rd youngest quarterback to ever start a Super Bowl. His elbow is not exploded right now, so he's going to have an offseason where he could actually work on his craft and get better. So hopefully he can be better next year. But, man, it's a tough hill to climb, Kay. You're asking this team to go back to 0 again. And if you look at the history of the NFL, you don't get this many bites at the apple historically. Usually around this time, the run kind of ends a little bit. So if the Niners are going to do this, they're going to do it in uncharted territory. It's a big, big ask for any quarterback, let alone a guy going into his 3rd year.
Yeah, and Ayuk they want him back next season. He's on his 5th-year option. He's not quite a free agent. I'm fine. I think Brock's great. I have it on good authority. It's him. He's the guy. We're there, full faith, full support around him. I'm more worried about when I say people arrest support around him. Like the O-line was freaking me out, and I wanted it for Trent. I wanted it for everybody, but I'm more worried the penalties. Brock was under constant pressure. Like that was not the story on the other side. They have to get better at that if they want a chance.
Well, that's, I think, part of the reason why the Shanahan teams have not had success coming back when they're down by a lot. It's because the offensive line is not good enough to straight pass block in passing situations. We saw it. I think some of that was Spagnuolo cracking the code. I think they had 9 just free rushes at Brock Purdy, so clearly Spagnuolo saw something. But we've seen too many times with this 49ers offensive line, when other teams need a big pass rush, they can get it. Because Colt McKivitz is not good. John Feliciano was okay. Jake Brendel is not very good. Even Aaron Banks, I don't think, is honestly very good. I think he's lucky to play next to Trent Williams. Kyle Shanahan has not invested very heavily in the offensive line except for one position. And clearly it's a factor, and it needs to change, and hopefully the Niners can do that.
But they were tired. The defense was tired. They were...
I'm tired, Kay. I'm sick and tired of coming on your show. The 49ers are coming after a bad loss.
Kyle did his best.
Things are bad. And his best wasn't good enough. Don't give me his best. Losers whine about their best, okay? Winners actually get the job done.
Oh, my God.
You wanted to fire me up, Kay, and you did it.
Congratulations.
So
and there's
so
more of
mean
that.
to me.
There's more of that where this comes from, guys. It's the Gold Standard Network. Check it out, YouTube, the whole 9. ESPN Radio and 95.7 The Game in San Francisco. Fired up stats. We hate it, but we love to see it.
Thanks, Kay.
Happy Valentine's Day, Niners fans! We'll be